They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmers podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I'm Lou Ruggieri. That's Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmers podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with us. And we are moving right along. This is hour number 2. I think we're on week 18 at this point. And so that's kind of exciting. We're moving right along. Touched a lot on all NBA first hour, so you can tune into that and go check us out and get all that information wherever you get your podcasts. This hour, however, I want to focus on a little bit of NFL news and some big NFL news, despite not having any games yet. We did see all the NFL training camps are open. So that right off the bat, Jose, that's a plus.
Great news. Great news.
Very
We're moving
good.
in the right direction. We might actually have football. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And so the coronavirus test, the NFL has been testing, they're under 1% positive rate for the coronavirus, which is keep doing what you're doing, NFL,
Yes.
because I need football on Sundays this year. And if the NFL does not, just for the record, if the NFL doesn't play this season, I'm going to sit on my couch every Sunday for at least 3 hours and just cry hysterically.
If the NFL doesn't play football this week, I don't know what we're going to do for the next 6 months.
We're gonna play theoretical football. We're gonna have matchups, and we're just gonna decide who won. That's what we're gonna do. It's just gonna be a different kind of fantasy football. So with NFL training camps opening up, Hard Knocks has started. Hard Knocks is taking LA by storm. It's the Chargers for the most part. It seems like it was I don't know, the Chargers and the Rams. I don't know if you watch this or not, Jose, but basically, a lot of there was no real football being played. It was a lot of just kind of Zoom call shots where, they showed Anthony Lynn, the Chargers head coach, on a Zoom call with all of his players, and it's just everybody talking about the virus. And apparently Anthony Lynn tested positive for coronavirus. And so that was kind of a big shocker. And he got into, how he felt, and the symptoms, and what he did, and what he shouldn't have done, and it kind of went on like that. I mean, we did see Justin Herbert. I will tell you, he looked very good. Obviously, he's not being hit by anybody yet, but his arm, his accuracy looked phenomenal. And I think Tyrod Taylor's days are very numbered, even in this kind of, weird offseason where veteran presence is going to be more valuable than maybe ever before. Jared Goff, not impressed still. I'm not a big Goff believer. And Sean McVay, I think some of the sheen has worn off of him a little bit.
Yeah.
He's still kind of a fun, fast talker, but all that. So have you noticed all the genius talk has been kind of put to the side recently?
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan's the new genius, so let's hopefully he doesn't go in that same direction. I mean, they throw around. Remember, Eric Mangini was once called a man genius, so they just throw around genius so haphazardly. So yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I'm curious to see what little nuggets Hard Knocks kind of shows us in the future. But the big news. Okay.
No, I was just going to say it. Just that, just touching on the Justin Herbert. I mean, he was the number 5 pick, I believe, or number 4 pick, number 6 in that area in the draft, and Tyrod Taylor. I was expecting Tyrod Taylor to be the starter for the year, and then they just give it to Justin Herbert. So it is surprising that he's kind of stepped up, and you're saying he's looking like he could become the starter right away. You think Fred in week 1?
I don't think it's going to be week 1. I think it's going to be, I'd say by like week 4, we'll probably see him if he progresses and doesn't get hurt.
And if the Chargers aren't 4-0, of course.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, if that's obviously, if Tyrod Taylor is suddenly this prolific offensive machine, then we might see him kind of Justin Herbert sitting the sidelines a little longer than expected. But
do you think that McVay gets fired if they don't do well this year?
No, no. McVay has bought himself a couple years, and he did just get extended. I
Yeah.
think last season. So I don't agree that he should have tied his cart to the Jared Goff horse, but I mean that remains to be seen. I'm not a big believer in Goff. I don't think he's, if he was drafted kind of down the draft a little bit instead of going number one overall, maybe I'd feel differently. But Goff and guys like Mitch Trubisky, I mean, they're just for that the highest. Mitch was a number three. Goff was one. It just doesn't. They're not living up to expectations, and certainly not Mitch Trubisky. But Jared Goff, I don't see it. But he got paid, and a few more people that got paid over this last week. It looks like the tight end extravaganza, Jose, your San Francisco 49er. George Kittle got just a dumb deal. And then hot on the heels of that, so George Kittle's starting for, what is it, 14 million a year, 15 million a year, something?
5 years, 75 million, whatever that breaks down to. I think that's 15 million a year, but my math is not amazing.
Yeah, it's 15 million a year on the nose. So, yeah, he basically took the top off the tight end salary cap there and set a new benchmark, which, not coincidentally, the Travis Kelce of the Chiefs almost immediately signed a 4-year, $58 million extension, which breaks down to just about $15 million a year again. So I'm sure, again, that's not a coincidence.
Can I just say I love when guys get paid? Like, I love when teams pay their guys. Nothing makes me happy.
When they're good, yes.
Yeah, when they're good. Yes, of course.
And yeah, Travis Kelce, I mean, arguably, those guys in either order are 1 and 2 in the tight end realm.
Yep.
And it started getting me thinking a little bit that, the tight end position feels like, because before George Kittle, I think the top tight end salary was like $10 million a year, which, I mean, for any normal plebeian of, like us, I mean, that's crazy money. But I mean, in terms of what these guys do for their team, I mean, if you think about the responsibilities the tight end has, a good tight end, not only are you, pass catching like a wide receiver in some cases, you're going up against, bigger, stronger defensive players across the middle of the field. You're also blocking at a crazy rate. And so, the responsibilities that these guys have are more, wide receiver basically is just there to catch the ball. You don't catch too many wide receivers blocking extensively. So it feels like that the tight end position is a little behind in terms of, the pay for performance. I feel like maybe now it's catching up a little bit, but.
Well, I think you have to be able to do both. The reason that Kelce and Kittle are getting paid is because they're putting up wide receiver numbers. They're not putting up good tight end numbers. 2 years ago, Kelce had 1,300 yards, and so did Kittle. And then last year, they both were slightly over 1,000, I think. Actually, no, Kittle had 1,200. I'm sorry, Kelce had 1,200, and Kittle had a little bit over 1,000. These guys they're the matchup nightmares. You're talking about the players that they're going against are bigger and stronger and faster. In this case, it might be the other way around, where you're a linebacker trying to guard George Kittle and he's just breaking your ankles.
Yeah.
Or you're someone trying to shed a block from Travis Kelce and he puts you on the ground because he's a monster. You ever look at Travis Kelce? He's a beast. He's
the whole
huge.
Kelce family are big dudes.
I was thinking about it. I mean, I'm sure that I'm missing something here, but look at the last few Super Bowl teams. The Patriots obviously had Gronk. We just saw last year's Super Bowl with Kittle and Kelce. The Eagles, Zach Ertz,
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah. Dallas Goedert. I don't think that when the Falcons went or the Rams went, they had good tight ends. So my logic might be messed up, but I think that the role of the tight end is becoming more and more important, especially for dual threats, guys who can help you while you're running the ball and can help you while you're throwing the ball as well.
So if you were to start a team right now, would you build your team around, let's say you get the number one pick between these four, you get George Kittle, Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, or Julio Jones?
Well, I mean, just based on age, I'm probably going to take George Kittle,
Mhm.
just because he's only in year 3, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's very close because DeAndre Hopkins is still pretty young. I think he's only 28 years old. I think Travis Kelce just turned 30, maybe. Yeah, he just turned 30.
30.
So yeah, I think the answer is Kittle probably.
Yeah, I think it's probably between DeAndre Hopkins and George Kittle, but the fact that we're thinking about that is kind of shows the value of a tight end, because I mean there's definitely the depth of good wide receiver talent in the league versus the depth of tight end talent is, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, there's so many more good wide receivers than there
And
are
that's
good tight ends.
and that's in the gap between guys like Travis Kelce and George Kittle and whoever the third or fourth or fifth guy is. It's a cavernous gap.
Yeah.
These guys are way better than the other players, and so that's also because maybe you say Julio Jones is the best wide receiver in the game, but I don't know if there's the gap between him and number 10 is that wide.
Yeah, I mean the gap between Michael Thomas and Julio Jones is virtually nil. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could argue either way, but yeah, there's a very top heavy tight end pool, and I'm glad to see that these guys got paid. A few other people that got paid. Bills offensive tackle signed a crazy deal. He also got $15 million a year. People are just giving out $15 million a year contracts. I wish I could get one of those. Deion Dawkins,
yeah.
4-year, $60 million deal. And I mean, he's an offensive tackle. I mean, tackles are, they're important. You got to protect your investment. And the Packers defensive tackle, Kenny Clark, signed a 4-year, $70 million deal, which my math isn't great, but that's about $17.5 million a year, which is just silly for, I guess,
Nose
defensive
tackle.
tackles. Yeah.
So Kenny Clark is actually the highest paid nose tackle in NFL history now.
Wow.
So that it's hard for me to really look at the signing and say it was good, just because I never, quite honestly, I didn't know who Kenny Clark was.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest. I watch football all the time. I'm all about it. But when I saw Kenny Clark got $70 million, I was like, who? I really didn't know a lot about him. And it's because he's an interior defensive player. He's not the glamour position defensive end. And then Deion Dawkins is now the 5th highest paid left tackle in the NFL. And now we know left tackle is like the most important position on the offensive line for right-handed quarterbacks. So,
yeah, and so I think anybody not named Aaron Donald, who's a defensive tackle, is not getting the notoriety. But I guess Kenny Clark, we're going to start paying attention to him right now.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw that Sean McDermott got extended through the 2025 season.
Bill's coach, Bill's head coach got a nice little extension, and I mean, maybe it's a coincidence that Tom Brady leaves the division and they extend their head coach, but
I thought it was kind of questionable actually. It's only 25 and 23 in the regular season, 0-2 in the postseason. I'm not really sure that he deserved an extension. I think I would have waited another year if I were them, but he had 2 more years left on his current deal. So
I feel like you kind of have to give him a little bit of a pass being in the Patriots division.
Yeah.
For a while. I mean, I don't know. They seem like they're a team on the rise.
True.
So I'd be willing to give them a chance to see what they can do with a Tom Brady-less Patriots team in their division now. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. Sean McDermott, good on you. I hope you do well. But, Josh Allen is not I'm still not sold on Josh Allen as a quarterback. I think that he's got a big arm, and he's a little too inaccurate for what I think the NFL is becoming.
Is it me, or is every single quarterback that was drafted in that class on the hot seat for this year? You're in the prove it year. You have Josh Allen, you have Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
Josh Rosen's not even.
Josh Rosen's just
not even
sitting on the
team.
bench.
Well, I guess Lamar Jackson's not on the hot seat. Everyone knows he's great.
Yeah.
Who am I forgetting? There were 5 guys drafted in the first round, right? So is Josh Allen. But Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's the other guy. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Allen all seem like they're kind of 1 year away from being either franchise quarterbacks or draft busts.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar Jackson is the only safe one out of the whole group.
Yeah.
I think Baker Mayfield has zero excuses this year.
Nope. Yep. You're right.
Sam Darnold might have bought himself an extra year with his whole mono situation last year, but I mean, he's under the Adam Gase terrible umbrella, so we don't really expect too much.
He does have one of the worst head coaches in history coaching him, so tough to win that way.
But there is hope on the horizon because a quarterback that one of those teams might be able to sign instead of their questionable 2018 draft pick is Alex Smith. Alex Smith was cleared to play. He's off the PUP list, and he had 17 surgeries from the time he broke his leg until he was cleared to play. 17 surgeries in about a 9-month period. And I don't know if you saw the sort of I don't know if it was an E60 about his whole experience, but I watched it, but it was probably the most graphic thing I've ever seen. Definitely on ESPN, but it was one of the most graphic things I've ever seen. He not obviously broke his leg in a horrific way, but then he had flesh-eating bacteria chewing up his leg, and they almost had to amputate his leg. He almost died. And so to see him battle back and come back is, I mean, it's such a great thing. But if you're Alex Smith, do you want to? I mean, do you want to take like a ceremonial? Do you want to take like a ceremonial snap and then say, all right, I'm good. I'm going to go home. That's enough. I can't deal with this ever again. Or do you think that he really wants to play again?
Well, I think sadly, I think he really wants to play again. I'm with you. One of the things I wrote down when I was thinking about Alex Smith is like, how is this guy ever playing again? How is his family letting him play football again? I don't know how much money he's made in his career, but I'm sure
he got a $70 million contract for the Redskins, which, I mean, maybe that plays into it where he has to play a certain amount of games to get that money. I mean, maybe that would influence my decision.
Or not want to pay back the signing bonus or whatever the case may be. Yeah, maybe that's it. To me, I would have been retired. I would have gotten my surgeries, and I would have been like, "Hey guys, I'll come and be a backup." Maybe that's it. Maybe he just to be a backup or emergency quarterback. But there's no way that I would have been walking back out on that football field ever again. Absolutely not. Not when you tell me that my life was in danger, and it's not like people are going to hit me less hard. People are probably going to hit me harder, actually. So I would be worried about the first time I take a hit if I'm him. And so I give him a lot of credit. I basically mark him down for Comeback Player of the Year award next season. But if I'm him,
I would want to take like a ceremonial snap just to say like I'm leaving on my terms. I'm not leaving. My last play on this field is not going to be on a stretcher.
But neither of us are football players, so maybe there's just a different mentality. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I wish him well, and I hope he does well because he's again talking a little about Jared Goff before. I mean, Alex Smith being a number one pick, he sort of was kind of touted as sort of a bust because of the expectations put on him as a number one pick. But overall, I mean, he's had a pretty good career. I mean, he was a very good quarterback. He just was exceptional. I mean, he was the ultimate game manager, I would say, and not in a negative way, but just sort of a guy you trust to run your offense and not screw up. I mean, that was
if you redid that draft, I think that was the 2005 draft. If you redid that draft, he would still be a first round pick. He wouldn't be the number one pick, but he'd still be a first round pick because when you're a starting quarterback in the NFL for a decade, you're a first round pick. That's just the way it is. Yeah. So.
And he's been in some interesting situations where he got jettisoned for Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Completely different. Jim Harbaugh sort of just wanted to change it up and go with his guy, and it was successful. And then on the Chiefs, I mean, what can you do? Patrick Mahomes could be the best quarterback of all time when it's all said and done. I mean, he's certainly on that route. And so, I mean, if you're Alex Smith, you just kind of go, well.
If I'm Alex Smith and I actually really am serious about playing, like I'm serious about restarting my NFL career, and it's not just ceremonial, not just trying to be a backup, I actually like my chances of beating out Dwayne Haskins or Or we're just beating out Dwayne Haskins, or just maybe going to another one of these teams that feel like, hey, we've got a decent team. Our quarterback is trash. Like we talked about the Bears a couple weeks ago. They might be one of these teams where in 2 years they look at their roster and say, we've got a championship defense. We've got some decent players. We just need a quarterback who's not going to wet the bed. Alex, come on, play for us.
Yeah. And
the Rams might be in that situation in a couple of years, honestly.
And truthfully, I mean, if Alex Smith is my backup quarterback, I feel pretty good. And you know who that would be perfect for? The Kansas City Chiefs. Yep.
Yeah. Wait, is it Chad Henne? Who's their backup right now? Who's the backup for Mahomes?
It was Matt Moore last season.
Matt Moore. I think it's Chad Henne.
Well, right. I'm actually not sure. I don't think Matt Moore is still there.
I'm looking it up right now. Chad Henne. I was correct.
It is Chad Henne. Good job.
Yeah, the name just stuck with me for some reason.
Yeah, speaking of another quarterback that's underperformed in his career.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Alex Smith, if he could swallow his pride a little bit, I mean, I think going back to back up Patrick Mahomes is not a bad gig. You're signing up for probably at least another ring. So,
Two.
You still get one.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of the Chiefs, and good luck to Alex Smith, but moving on, we have a little bit more NFL news to get to. The Chiefs, speaking of, have said that they plan on having fans in the stands this football season. Now, it's going to be at a very diminished 22% capacity, but, that still comes out to about 18,000 fans, depending on what the official capacity of the Arrowhead Stadium is. And so I have a couple questions here. Jose, if you're a Chiefs fan, do you want to go to the stadium, say week 1 or week 2 or if it's week 10? I mean, are you interested in going to the stadium with people yet?
Well, probably not, just because I don't know how. Like, if they were saying we're going to charge you $1 for the ticket or something, if it was a cheap ticket.
If you're a season ticket holder, let's say you already
have the tickets.
Yeah.
I'd still say probably not. I don't see myself going to. I don't know. I think I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't go to a lot of live sporting events. I think they're overpriced, so I just don't generally go. So if I were a season ticket holder, I probably would have a different mindset. But I think this is the year to kind of skip and just stay home.
Well, from a safety perspective,
yeah.
I mean, how would you feel? Would you feel?
Well, it's weird because So on one hand, I talk a big game. I'm like, oh, I don't know what the big deal is. But then, like a couple weeks ago, I went to the lake with my wife and son, and like these people were like all up on us, and I started getting like nervous. I'm like, get away from me! Like, what are you doing? Like, we're social distance right now. And so I realized that in actual practice, I have become, and I'm hoping this doesn't become a permanent thing, but I have become a little scared of people. Just being around other people. I'm just like, oh my God, you're near me. Get away from me. So. Yeah, I think I would probably.
For the record, that's how I felt before COVID. That was my reaction to people before all this started. So you can only imagine where I'm at now. It's just this is sort of an introvert's best friend. This virus is that it's just helping me stay even further away from people. But now I have a reason instead of just looking like I have a social phobia.
Yeah, it would be tough to get me out to a game this year under any circumstance.
I'm torn because on the one hand, I think being in a stadium like Arrowhead and being it with just such a small group of people, I think would have this sort of a, I don't know what more, I don't want to say intimate feel, but a more personal feel. I feel like I was part of a niche group. It was just us, and we're sort of these mavericks that are, bucking the trend and saying, you can't stop us, and we're proving that we're going to move forward and get back to real life. But then on the other hand, I don't trust people normally. And now you're adding in, concessions and beer and liquor, and, people are drunk are dumber than sober people. And I don't know that I would trust people to wear masks and to distance properly. So I'd be I think I think it would come down to who the Chiefs are playing, honestly. If it's a great game and it's like they're playing the Patriots or they're playing the Buccaneers or I don't know who else, but I think maybe I would be inclined to go, but I'd be very even if I decided to go, I'd still be very, very cautious and very anxious throughout that entire game.
It'd be tough for me to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
I don't. Like you said, I'm not sure how many fans
I
are
wouldn't
in
bring
the
a
area.
child. Would you bring your son?
Oh no, absolutely not.
Okay.
No
Yeah, I
way.
would not. I wouldn't definitely
No
not
way.
a kid.
No.
So, yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm happy that they're doing it. Jerry Jones also said that the Dallas Cowboys plan on having fans in the stands. Obviously, because Jerry likes making money, so any way he can, he will.
I just feel like it's going to be some weak atmosphere, though. Like, it's almost better for them to pump in noise than have, like, this little pitter-patter
do
of
both.
applause.
They'll probably do both. It'll probably be both, I think. I mean, the Falcons were doing it when they had a full stadium, so.
That's true. How quickly I forgot.
Yeah, so speaking of Cowboys, I don't know if you saw this news or not, but this is, we only have a couple more things to do, but there's some Cowboys news in the midst. And the first thing, we'll do bad news first, then the good news. Bad news is that Gerald McCoy, Cowboys defensive tackle, got a season-ending quad injury a couple days ago, and the Cowboys just decided to release him, which I think is, I get it, it's a business move, but it looks really bad. I don't.
This is the NFL for you. This is what happens. This is why most of the time you will always find me on the side of players when they have a good year and then they want a lot of money, because this right here, where you get injured and now you're just cut. You didn't even play one game for the Cowboys and now you're just cut, because that's what happens in the NFL. The minute you're not worth the money to them, they just cut you.
Yeah.
And so if you're an NFL player, the minute you're worth more than what they're paying you, you need to go and try and get more money. This is what they forced you to do. This type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Gerald McCoy is pretty good. He was a first team All Pro once. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler. You know, he played for the Buccaneers. He played for the Panthers. I mean, he looked like he was going to do some serious damage. And I guess the Cowboys, it was more important to save the $3.25 million on the salary cap. But
imagine pairing him with DeMarcus Lawrence on that defensive line. I mean, it's just
it would have been something. But I mean, it's a shame, and it's not a good look. I mean, I know that they're saving $3 million, but the bad PR that they're going to get for doing that is going to might cost them even more than that. But whatever. I mean, that's the Joneses. But speaking of, so a little more Cowboys news, former Cowboys news. Dez Bryant is rumored to be trying out for the Baltimore Ravens, and I love this. I think that it's great. I think Lamar Jackson would do very well with Dez, who, is 6'2", 220 pounds, who's probably more tight end than wide receiver at this point. But I'd like to see Dez back on the field. He sort of, the last time we heard from him, he was scoffing at what was. I think it was like 3 years, $21 million that the Ravens were rumored to offer him, and he was like, "No, I can do better than that." And then he sat on the sidelines with us for the last 2 years.
What a bad decision by him.
Yeah, I mean, he gambled, and you would think a guy like Antonio Brown would take a look at what happened to Dez, because Dez was, for a few years, he was arguably the best receiver in the league, or top 5 receiver for sure.
Absolutely.
And then just the game moves on. It's just, you're not bigger than the game. And Dez found that out. Antonio Brown's finding that out. And I really do hope that Dez gets back on the field, because I feel like he could still be a productive player. I mean, he's been a great player. I mean, he's got 73 touchdowns. He has almost 7,500 yards receiving, 531 receptions in his career, 113 out of 113 games, which is pretty good. And he's just, I think he's exciting to watch. And I'd like to see him, especially paired with a team like the Ravens, who just are just a juggernaut offensively. So,
yeah, well, to me, it's not even, it's a great opportunity for Dez Bryant when you look at the wide receiver core that the Ravens have. Miles Boykin, Willie Snead, Devin Duvernay, and Marquise Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown, last year wasn't healthy, so we'll see if he's able to stay healthy this year. But he's more of a field stretch or deep threat. I don't know much about Miles Boykin or Devin Duvernay. I know Willie Snead is a number 4 receiver. So
yeah,
there seems to be space for him to kind of come in and command as a possession receiver.
Yeah, it looked like Mark Andrews, their tight end, was kind of sort of their number one option for a while there on the Ravens.
Yeah, but it's like having a second tight end on the field, basically, like you alluded to.
Yeah, I think Dez would be great as sort of that sort of Anquan Bolden possession receiver kind of role.
First down guy to move the chains.
He's big. He'll get you. If you need 8 yards, he'll get you 8 yards. You need 30 yards, he'll get you 8 yards. It's just going to be that.
I also think I'm not sure about Lamar Jackson's downfield accuracy. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I also think that Dez Bryant's going to be a great 50-50 guy where you can throw the ball up and you say, just go win this ball. And I don't know a lot of players who are going to beat Dez Bryant for the ball. At least the old Dez Bryant. We'll see where he is now, but that was one of his main things.
Made a career out of doing that. So I hope that he does well. So we have a lot of potential comeback players of the year between Alex Smith and Dez Bryant, hoping that one of them blows up. So, all right, we're going to take a break, and then we have to touch on a little bit of college football in the final segment, some interesting news with Justin Fields, and I kind of just want to get into that a little bit. So you can follow us along. We're on the iHeartRadio podcasting app. We are on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Twitter's the BW Pod, at the BW Pod. I always forget that. You can email us at the Benchwarmerz Podcast at yahoo.com. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. And follow us along and stay with the times, stay with us. So stay with us through this break, and we'll come right back on the Benchwarmers.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
And now back to the Benchwarmers Podcast with Lou and Jose.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I'm Lou, that's Jose, and this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. We appreciate you taking some time to spend it with us. We've had a hell of a show so far. Hour one, we talked all NBA because it's the playoffs, and we are excited for real sports and playoff sports. Hour two, we just got done talking a lot of NFL news, a lot of big signings, a lot of tight end signings. Alex Smith, Dez Bryant, you can kind of rewind and see everything that we touched on there. So finally, Jose, I kind of want to end off on sort of a somewhat controversial note, I guess. Justin Fields, as we know, Big Ten and Pac-12 have said that they're not playing football this year. Justin Fields, on the other hand, the Ohio State quarterback, says that he wants to play, and he actually went so far as to start a petition to reinstate the football season for Ohio State, and I guess the Big Ten also. He has, as of this week, he has 250,000 signatures, which I'm sure are predominantly fans, but still, I mean, that's pretty impressive in a matter of just a few days. And it got me thinking about this, that the fact that the players weren't really even consulted for this decision. And I get it, maybe they shouldn't be the ultimate decision makers. That would be ridiculous. But I feel like the decision makers should have at least had some sort of representation by the players to say, hey, guys that are going to be out there doing this, how do you feel about it? Before they just kind of slammed the door shut and said, all right, well, we're not doing it. And I don't get it.
So I do think that there should have been some way that the players had a chance to opt out or opt in. But as you were saying it just now, something just hit me. The players have no voice. They don't matter in this, right? It's all about the coaches. it's the athletic directors, it's the presidents, it's all these other people. Like the players who, in theory, should be the most important are actually often the least important.
Yes.
They're the ones who are putting their, in theory, putting their lives on the line more so anyway than anyone else by playing. And so you would think that they would have to say, but they don't get paid. Everyone's making all this money off of them, and they get no say off of it. So,
yeah, and I start to wonder, kind of, is it? I get that the liability of what the presidents and the chancellors and whoever is the final decision makers of these colleges is looking at, because it's like we've talked about before, and we were talking off the air, that this is essentially, college sports is a business, despite what everyone wants to say. And I think a big part of the business is avoiding, it's not only making money, but it's avoiding the loss of money. And I think the liability issue that most of these presidents were seeing, and that, they just, all they saw was lawsuit after lawsuit coming down the pike, is what deterred them the most. But I said it, I think I said it last week, but it seems that the players on the field would be safer than students in dorm rooms. Like, some schools are having kids back on campus. And to me, I mean, unless you're testing them the same way you would test, these athletes, like day after day and test after test, it's a little bit hypocritical to do that. I don't really understand the thinking behind that, of like, if you can have people on campus, why can't they be on campus on the football field if they're being tested even more stringently?
It's a great point. I'm just going to guess at the answer here because I'm not the one making decisions.
Yeah.
I think part of it is that, so maybe not, what that was stupid that they should be in this position, but maybe not every school is prepared to have whatever 50,000, 20,000, whatever, however many students they have, be all online, right? Where you have all classes, all teachers, all online all the time. Because if you could do that, why wouldn't you have done that? Unless, of course, once again, it's about making money and having people pay more money to be on campus. It might even just be that simple. I hope it's not.
Yeah.
But it might actually be that simple.
Sure.
So the thing is, with like going to college is supposed to be about, the number one thing is supposed to be getting an education. So you can't have college without having classes. And in theory, you could go to class. You could have staggered schedules where not everyone's at the same time. You could have social distancing where there's only 10 kids per class. I mean, my just to give you a little example, my son, they have daycare. They offered him daycare where they were like, "Oh, we're going to be completely socially distant. We're going to have only a maximum of 10 kids per class." We still didn't buy it, and we didn't send them back, but they were willing. There was protocols in place for them to have the kids there. I think the issue with having football is you don't really need to have football. Unless it's because football is supposed to be secondary. Now, the fact that they want to have football still is confirmation that this is just a business.
Right.
But if you're going, and all the NCAA like figureheads always say, they're student athletes. They're not athletes first. We care about our students' education. We care about our students' health. You can't have that line and then say, okay, we're going to have football, which is completely unnecessary to the education, right? Football doesn't help your education at all. So that's why I think it's because football is an extracurricular activity. Now, like if they were having like chess club, I'd be like, okay, this is the same type of thing, right? Are they going to get rid of all extracurricular activities? Because that's what football is, an extracurricular activity. It's not a necessity for college. And I think that's the difference.
Well, it's not a necessity for college, but it is a necessity for colleges in that it's the breadwinner. I mean, that's, everything revolves around the money that football, big conference football, especially Big Ten. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
That money is what floats the rest of the sports. And that sort of is another question I had is, okay, you're saying, okay, football can come back or football can come back. either way, whichever way you go with it, now you still have to address all of those other sports. So you can't say in one breath, well, we have to have football because, I mean, come on, it's the biggest sport and we're known for being Buckeyes or whatever. And, you can't, obviously you sort of circumvent the financial aspect of it, but then you can't then say, well, but the swim team, no way. No, sorry. That's way too dangerous. Not at all. It has, and try to pretend like it has nothing to do with the fact that the swim team costs you money and the football team makes you money.
That's certainly a factor. That's certainly a factor.
But it's hard to. So I think that if you're going to do something, do it across the board. Don't be superficial and kind of just pretend.
And for the record, I just want to say, and I actually was talking to my wife about this a few weeks ago. If I were a college athlete, I'd want to play because you have a finite amount of time to. If you're Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, you're going to get drafted, right? Yeah. But if you're a person right now who's graded outside of the second or third round, there's no guarantees that you're going to get drafted. And you have 1 year to make a name for yourself. Maybe this is the first year you're going to be a starter because you had a guy like Saquon Barkley in front of you for 3 years or something like that. Now you're a senior. Now you finally get a chance to be a starter, and now the season's canceled. And now your dreams, no matter how small they may have been or unrealistic they may have been, are gone. And so I just, that's the one thing I kind of feel the same way as like a high school senior. I know that it's not quite the same, but if you're a high school senior, you might have had a chance to impress and get yourself a scholarship to a good school. And now you're not going to have that opportunity. You just don't get these chances back. And in college especially, there's millions and millions of dollars to be made at the next level that guys aren't going to get a chance to showcase their skills to make that money. And I think it's a huge loss. I really feel bad for those players. Really feel bad.
And your kind of final point on that is echoes exactly what I was just going to say, is that, if we wind the tapes back a little bit, wind a year or two even, if you look at guys who were essentially, made their NFL careers in 1 year. I mean, Joe Burrow, most notably, I mean, he went from being what would have been maybe a 5th round pick to number 1 overall by virtue of having the greatest football, quarterback college season we've ever seen, statistically speaking. And if you take away that year, I mean, Joe Burrow, who knows where he goes? Dwayne Haskins, same thing. His final year at Ohio State, he throws 50 touchdowns, and then he gets drafted in the first round. Yeah. Jalen Hurts, if he had, before he went to Oklahoma, the last thing we saw was him getting replaced by Tua and then just sort of fade away into the ether of sports nothingness. And so, but he went to Oklahoma. He performed admirably, not as good as the other two guys, but he's still good enough to be picked in the second round.
Yeah.
So take all of that away, and you have 3 guys right off the bat that are gone. Their careers might not even be.
That's why I don't understand why the NCAA didn't immediately come out. Like, that's the thing, that there should have been something where you say, listen, if and maybe there's still time. The 3 divisions or conferences, the ACC, SEC, and Big 12, that are still gonna play fall sports this year, they should have something where, if you opt out and you don't want to play, you're not losing your eligibility. You're not losing your scholarship. You still have a spot next season. Yeah. I hope that they're doing that. I haven't heard anything like that, but I'm hoping that they do something like that, because it's not fair. You shouldn't have to be worried about your health at the same time as trying to play football. And you shouldn't have to make the choice. Well, do I want to risk my health? Whatever the risk is, we can debate that. But do I want to risk my health, or do I want to go out and play football and try and get a big contract?
I mean, or the other thing that comes to mind is let these players be able to transfer to schools that will play. I mean, my God, imagine Justin Fields is the Alabama quarterback.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
that's not a bad idea.
It's the only problem with it is that then you're sort of you're making these super teams, and by doing that, you're sort of destroying other players' careers, because then, okay, well, Justin Fields is coming in, so I guess I was the starter, and now I'm going to go sit on the bench. Do they have to transfer to like an ACC school now? It's like,
And then you're also penalizing teams that, or schools, or that may be trying to be a little bit more cautious, because it's not like one school has different information than the other schools do, or one conference has different information than the other conferences do. It's just that one conference is saying we don't want to take the risk; it's not worth it to us, and the other conferences are saying we do want to take the risk; it is worth it to us. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I think that looking at the NFL is obviously it's not quite apples to oranges, but it's like apples to pears, kind of, because it's not quite the same thing. But the steps that they're taking and the transmission rate that they're at this minus under 1%. I mean, obviously they're doing something right. So this can be done, at least up to this point, successfully. So why not? Again, like you said earlier, I agree completely. Like, give the players the option to opt out, and then if they opt in, okay, sign a waiver. If you get coronavirus, you're not going to sue the school.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. I mean, CTE. What happened to that? All of a sudden we forgot about CTE. There was a $1 billion lawsuit in the NFL. That hasn't gone away. It's just that coronavirus has sort of taken the mantle of most dangerous thing out there for sports and everybody at this point. But let them give. How do you not give these players the choice? It's their careers, it's their lives, it's their decision. And you can say, well, they're young, I guess, but I mean, it's still more their decision than yours.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to give them the chance to at least. This is their lives. This is for many of them. They're expecting to try and get to the NFL, and this will hurt their opportunity. This is a chance that they may not get back. So it's a tough spot.
Well, good for Justin Fields. I hope that his petition hits a note, hits a chord, and it finds the ears of some of these Big Ten and other presidents.
Last thing I just want to bring up, just really quickly on that is, if they, I mean, there was talk about it being salvaged in the spring. So maybe that's the long-term plan. They say, okay, well, we still have college football. It just won't be in the fall. But one of the things that you brought up that I poo-pooed at first, but now that I've been thinking about it more, I think you were actually right, where it's just there's a lot of players who just won't even play because they're like, well, the NFL, I'm not going to hurt myself before the NFL. Even if I'm a 5th-round pick right now, I'll be a no-round pick if I break my leg. So,
right. Yeah. And that's, and it does. I mean, the spring football, I think that would probably prevent players from being able to transfer because they're not canceling the season. So I think that's sort of a scapegoat. And but it just feels like they're just kicking the can down the road a little further and just saying, well, just kind of crossing their fingers that a vaccine comes out in between now and then. But what if that doesn't happen? What's going to be different? Nothing. So. We'll see. I mean, I'm interested to see how this goes, and I would like to see players get at least the choice. People are always better off when they're given a choice and not just told what they're supposed to do. But, all right, so, Jose, that'll do it. That's a full show in the books. I think it went well. I'm going to give us a solid A for this show. We went a lot of NBA talk, and I'm excited. I'm going to go watch the Lakers Trailblazers because we're taping this on Tuesday, and we'll recap that and every other game in the NBA playoffs next week. So come find us. iHeartRadio podcasting app, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all the best places to find us. So for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.